Good evening, everybody. It's the Serotonin Receptor. I'm your host, Serotonin. Today's date is, let me think about that. It is March the 30th, 2019. And here we go. Well, that is probably my favorite ever cover of Fly Me to the Moon, and that was the great Bobby Womack. For those of you who do not know who Bobby Womack is, you're in for a treat. He's done some beautiful songs. And so here we are on the 30th of March. We are going out like a lamb, out like a lion. It's kind of hard to tell, isn't it, this month? So many interesting things happening, and I picked that song because, guys, it is go time. We are at the beginning of the storm, the middle of the storm. The storm has begun. And we're flying right now. So, I just wanted to just get in there before we get too far going on today's episode, or to this week's podcast, I should say, that I won't be doing as long a podcast today because I have limited time. So it's going to be a little shorter than the last two, which is probably a good thing. So I'm not sure how many people want to listen to a 2-hour podcast. So also this week, it's a little bit of a hodgepodge, a little bit of a jump around because there has been so much going on. And so I just kind of wanted to go over a couple of different things, but it's not really a theme like last week's on parenting. This is kind of a few different things. So number one, I just wanted to find out how people were feeling about the work that we did around anger. And I'm actually gonna, so if you know, interested in finding out more about that, please leave your comments below. I do think I'm going to do a podcast on anger, and it might be next week, because I do think that anger is really oh wow, okay, I've just lost my vocabulary there. But it really is going against our best intentions at this point, and it's really going to kind of pull us down. So I really wanted to address anger. It's something we all have a lot of trouble with, I think, because we're humans and we're living in a world of emotional reaction. And I actually watched this really incredible video the other day about how culturally in Japan they just cannot participate in the kind of outraged leftist sort of demonstration that we're seeing over in other countries, because it's just not part of how they have been raised for so long. It's just not part of their culture, really, to be enraged and to show anger in an outward way. And I found that very interesting because it's very much like the Inuit. And yet, you know, we also hear there's a lot of talk about suppression in that incredibly competitive world in Japan. Like I think it's only like 85% of all people between the ages of like 18 and 40 are single. There's an enormous number of people living in internet cafes and stuff, because it's much a bigger thing over there. So it's really interesting. Anyway, I just thought it was very interesting subject matter, and it's definitely something we're going to get into in the next podcast. The emotions around anger, the fact that we're being triggered, the fact that 5G towers are going up and they can affect us on a very microwave level. And so what exactly is voice to skull technology? How are we being manipulated? And how anger plays into all of that. So I'm going to save that for for a different week, because I'm going to want to put more time into that. So another topic that I really wanted to talk about was death and reincarnation, and how people are feeling about that right now. And so I just wanted to just put a little point out there that according to many sources, including Thomas Williams, including Yellow Rose for Texas, and a few other places of intel sort of gathering, what they call the reincarnation machine, or the loop, has been dismantled, and so souls apparently are not being reincarnated back into Earth right now. And so apparently this was dismantled in 2014, I believe, or 2013. So any deaths that have occurred since then, I could be wrong, it could be 2015, I'm sorry, I'm having like a big memory about it being 2015. So I do apologize for my lack of accuracy over that date. But I guess the most important idea is that around 5 years ago or 4 years ago, there was a dismantling of the reincarnation process. And so all souls that have died since apparently have gone back to source, or can choose to be reincarnated. But reincarnation is a choice, and apparently it's really kind of much nicer to go back to source, but of course, I wouldn't know necessarily. So there you go. If you would be interested in me doing more exploration of death and reincarnation and what is going on around that, then again, please do let me know. So please let me know how you feel about me doing a bit more research on that. And I think I'm just going to do the podcast actually on anger, regardless of what comments I get. I think it's important and I think it's interesting. So the other big thing that I wanted to talk about actually it is the mainstream media. And it looks like the can of worms has been opened. And I'm just going to have a quick look right now while I'm hanging with you guys at the Fox News website. They're kind of like my favorite third dimensional news channel to go to, because they're a little bit more middle of the road, even though they have their own biases, and I'm sure they have their own paychecks from certain people, but they seem a little bit more middle of the road. And for me, they're a very good litmus test of what is being told to the public. Although I do find that there's quite a lot that's happening on Fox that don't make it to the other networks. And so it is still quite limited, and possibly a very small perspective of what is being broadcast out there. So They're talking about closing the border wall completely, or the border, I should say, completely. This whole thing about uh, sorry, this is very distracting. I'm just going to actually go away from it. This whole story about the hoaxed attack that happened to the actor in Chicago is very, very interesting. So that actually is probably one of the most telling stories right now about what's going on. So a lot of people are really outraged by this, and rightly so. But I don't think that the outrage is really, important. I think really I think it's part of the reaction to it. And a lot of people are kind of freaking out. And so some people are saying that this is proof of, a broken system, and other people are saying, well, he's a hero, and so it's made a big mess, as was, I'm sure, the intention. It's a distraction piece to keep us looking away from looking at probably far more important things. But what to keep in mind with all of that is there's the chances that he's walking because he's implicated other people are much bigger than the chances of there being a broken system. And this is just the beginning of this story, and I think we all know that. I mean, look at the man's face. Every time he's been seen in public for the last couple of days, he looks fed up. He looks trapped. He looks like he's a prisoner of his own making. He looks like he's just realized what a totally terrible situation he just put himself in, because there's no way that he is a free man doing this. There's no way that he came up with this. He didn't come up with this. He's doing this as a favor for someone, and gosh only knows what the favor is. Now, he's being tied to the Obamas. He's being tied to Kamala Harris. He's being tied to Rahm Emanuel. He's being tied to all kinds of different people. He's being tied to the NXIVM people. He's being tied to the Clintons. I mean, it goes on and on and on. The list goes on and on and on. And so is this the first domino, so to speak, of the, of the rest to follow? And I think we're going to see things picking up pretty darn fast. Now, the other thing to be noticing is that there's a lot more talk about sex trafficking. There's a lot more talk about creepy people in parliament and government, in the US, and who are basically getting called out for all kinds of, like the sexual assault accusations are just through the roof. And you will notice more and more they're making jokes about underage sex. There's a lot of talk about that. That is actually one of the most disturbing trends, and I'm actually trying to compile a video about that. Between the drag queen library reading program, which I just think is absolutely ridiculous. I've been friends with drag queens. I used to hang out in the neighborhood when I was in my 20s, when I thought it was cool, or cooler, I guess. And I can tell you, bar none, drag queens are not, there's no reason that they should be around children. If you want children to accept trans people, get just normal, regular trans people to go to the library and do story time. Why do they have to dress up like Satan's mommy, to be reading these stories? It makes no sense to me whatsoever. Drag queens are about crystal meth and dick jokes, and that's pretty much it. And that's pretty much all they ever talk about, and that's what they find funny. So along this line of thinking, wouldn't you have stand-up comedians, like, or maybe bartenders or hookers could go into the library and read? I mean, it makes no sense to me why you would have adult entertainers, like, sending some strippers in to do story time next. Like, it makes no sense to me. There was a case recently where a man in Texas apparently was a registered child sex offender, and he made it through because they didn't do a background check. So do your background check, library. Find some actual, regular, normal trans people who are not full of sick dick jokes and stuff, and just have them. I mean, if this is what if the name of the game is acceptance, then bring in acceptable people. Bring in acceptable trans people. If that's your goal, is to make, people less abusive towards trans people, then bring in the nice ones. Don't bring in the drag queens. Anyway, that's just my rant, and I will go away from that rant right now. But anyway, so there's that. There's, Rob Lowe making jokes about how he had his sex tape too early. But it's okay because 14 was the age of consent at the time when it was filmed and put on and it was like, I mean, I remember that. That was like the 90s or the late 80s actually. It was like 88 or 87. Um, I wasn't even in high school then, and that was all over the entertainment news. I mean, that's pretty gross. And basically, this is what is the big story right now, is trying to normalize this. I think it's the last push for the normalization of the pedophilia, and I don't know how long that's going to last for, but they're certainly pushing for it hardcore right now. A lot of, terrible stories about, I mean, the Epstein stuff is going to get surfaced. That's coming out. What else is coming out? The Nexium stuff hasn't left the courtrooms. So we really are at the crest of the wave. You guys are going to have, I mean, I'm quite certain that you are probably the most awake in your community. I mean, might have more people in your online community or what have you, but in your day-to-day dealings, you are the one who knows what's going on. Nobody else is going to know. You're probably going to have, I mean, if people have been mocking you, I'm sure you're going to be getting apologies. Your life is going to change drastically in many different ways. It's probably going to get pretty chaotic. So I think now is the time to really try and steel yourself for this tide of panic that is going to come from the sleepy people. Um, it is going to be pretty intense. And it's obviously happening. I mean, the storm is upon us. So I guess that's all I really want to get to with the mainstream media. And just, I guess just kind of keep your wits about you. And, if there was anything specific that you were pushing in terms of getting the truth out there, it's a good time to brush up on your, we know our facts and we know what caused us to awaken. But I know that when I met with someone who is angry and thinks quickly, I'm not a quick thinker in the moment when I'm having a disagreement with someone. So sometimes it's good for me to kind of go over my facts a little bit. And I'm kind of doing that right now because I've got a lot of people who didn't want to talk to me for a long time because I couldn't not be truthful. And I was trying to fly my freak flag, so to speak, or my just like what I know, and they weren't okay with that at all. And I have a feeling that there's this in the back of my mind. I'm like, I wonder when it's going to happen, when suddenly I'm going to hear from them. So sometimes I like to think about like what we would talk about and what is the ultimate video. Like I have on my YouTube channel, for example, I have you can like add things to like lists that you make for yourself, playlists. So if you have that going on, I know that I'm not always quick to explain what's going on, but if I can give someone links and resources and let somebody else who has better research or better knowledge or what have you, I'm very much into doing the research myself, but I'm not always amazing at explaining things. Especially when it's something that I care very deeply for and I have an emotional attachment to it. Sometimes I can get very kind of mixed in my own thoughts. So this is a good thing to do, to practice, and also practice humility. It's really, when we have someone sort of say like, well, I told you so or whatever, it usually makes us feel pretty bad about ourselves and our choices and what have you. So it's a good time to practice letting go of maybe the anger that you may be feeling towards people that have rejected you. And one of the things that I really, really like this grounding technique is actually, I've posted this before, but I'm going to post it again. It's from the Think Differently, the Truth, Honor, and Integrity People's Club website for Thomas Williams. And it's actually, I've mentioned it before, but I'm just going to go over it again. It's this grounding technique that he has talked about that's really good. And I actually really like this one. So you put both feet on the ground and you turn your head and your eyeballs behind closed eyelids to the left, and you inhale, and as you do that, you gather up all of the negative feelings that you have, anything that just feels bad, and you turn your head and your eyes as you exhale, keeping your eyes shut, to your right shoulder, and you will exhale during that, and then you will visualize as you exhale in that breath is all of those negative feelings exiting your body. And you're going to do that again. You're going to repeat this until you basically get distracted and stop doing it. And when that happens, you can either reset yourself to do it for a bit longer if you feel like you just got distracted but you're not ready to finish. And what you might want to do is quickly to kind of reset yourself, keeping your eyes closed, keep your head centered in the middle at this point, and look left, look right, breathe out. 2 short breaths. So look left, look right, breathe out. Kind of like a labor breath, you know, for those of you that did like what's it called? Oh, I just have the worst mom brain today. But anyway, Lamaze. Anyway, so once you've finished sort of purging yourself of these negative feelings, what you're going to then do is you're going to imagine a beam of what you consider to be pure light coming from Source God. So not from Lord God, because we don't know who Lord God is, and we know who Source God is. Source God is the benevolent God that created all of us and loves us and is what is pushing us to our benevolent future. So we're going to draw upon pure light from Source God into our crown chakra or something like that, or shower it over you, but it doesn't matter. You can give the light a color. Lots of people like to do like a golden color. Doesn't really matter, but you want light or love coming from Source God. And that's kind of the important thing. Think about Source. And then you're going to put this light into your heart chakra, but a new heart chakra, which is just to the right of your heart. Fill your body with it and push this energy down into your feet and down into the ground and anchor it to the earth's core, the earth's center, the roots of the tree of life. If you are a flatty, if you're like flat earther theory, then you can anchor it to the tree of life, the roots, as you like. If you're an inner earth person, you can anchor it to the benevolent beings in the inner earth. It depends what is your perception at this moment. So that is a really good thing to keep going with and to work on. And actually, this is a beautiful segue to some videos that I actually posted recently. They're mirrored from Yellow Rose for Texas. And really amazing videos talking about our perception of where we are in the galaxy. And it's at a galactic level, which I quite like because not a lot of people talk about it from that level of things. And there's some pretty cool stuff in her videos. I really like the work a lot. I'm not sure I align with all of it. A lot of it troubles me. Not because I think it's wrong, but because it's not where my head and my heart was, and so it takes time to readjust. Often when I look at the videos, they're a little confusing. They make a little bit more sense later. I've also just let go of a lot of the information and just really enjoyed observing someone's information from just such an incredible perspective. So, you know, we like to get lost in the details, and as they say, the expression "the devil is in the details" is one that really just so fascinating right now. So when I think of that line right now, that saying, I think, well, then don't get stuck in the details. If the devil is in the details, don't worry about the details. So anyway, that's what the Yellow Rose for Texas videos that I posted, those 3 really have done for me. They've kind of taken me out of the details, and I'm just kind of enjoying the ride. Funny thing that just crossed my mind just right now, and I feel very compelled to say it. I don't know if any of you guys watched the series Lost. I'm a bit of a binge watcher back in the time when I watched TV. And I discovered that show when it was like in the 3rd or 4th season, and so I had a lot of catching up to do. And then I was there. They had a Lostpedia site and everything, and I actually got so into the construct of the story that I stopped watching the show and I spent all my time on the Lostpedia site. And that's, yeah. So I'm kind of an interesting person in terms of that. Sometimes I just like the story of it so much that I'm not even interested in the story. I just want to know how you built it. But anyway, there's the final episode of Lost, or the last, maybe second last one or whatever. And they talked about the two brothers. And if anybody has watched Lost, please watch that episode again. A lot of people really hated that episode. And I was very forgiving with that show. I just really enjoyed a lot of it, except for the whole love storylines. They always drive me crazy. They're just kind of stupid, so that drives me nuts. But the rest of it was, so anyway, that particular episode was very, very interesting. And they talk a lot about gears and machines and the two brothers and light and dark. And I think it's Enki and Leal. And it's very interesting. Once you started really digging, and sometimes when you go back and you're like, oh my gosh, they were telling us like flat out. They were telling us. So watch that particular episode and tell me what you think, especially if you've watched the Yellow Rose for Texas videos where they talk about the sun having gears and stuff, which is just super cool. And by the way, in case anybody's confused when they're watching those videos, Ed is their name for the sun because Ed is short for editor. So, and I'm still trying to figure all that out. Anyway, I highly recommend if you have time to yourself. Her stuff is pretty cool. Anyway, I am going to read to you an interesting little piece. I've talked to you guys before about a website that I go to called Galactic Connection. They have a really cool blog. And I've also given a little bit of a disclaimer for this particular website because I'm not completely convinced that she edits through all her stuff. Hang on a second. I think I might have to re-record in a little bit. But anyway, I'm not entirely sure she edits through all of her stuff. But she does post a lot of this postings from something called the Ninth Dimensional Arcturian Council. And so I wanted to read the one from you today. And I definitely want to figure out how I'm going to link this to you. And I want to encourage you guys to read a bit more. Now, I don't know how I feel about channeling. With the voice to skull technology, I sort of don't buy into any of that stuff. However, when a message is good, a message is good. So that's kind of where I'm at. And especially if you don't take things to heart, take things so seriously, advice is to be mulled over and taken where it fits. Whatever aligns with you is what is for you. And if it doesn't align for you, discard it. It's not for you. And that's just kind of how I operate in general. And, I'm going to be putting a lot of stuff on the website that I'm building and stuff in the podcast that is just, it's stuff that I've tried out. If it doesn't align for you, it doesn't align for you. It's not for you. If it does align with you, that's amazing. So here we go. The Ninth Dimensional Arcturian Council. Their installment of this time is called What You Will Create Next. This is their current statement to humanity. It always begins and ends the same way. Greetings. We are the Arcturian. Greetings. We are the Arcturian Council. We are pleased to connect with all of you. We are very satisfied with your progress, and we are very eager to see what you will do next. You see, this is why we cannot tell you the future. We don't know exactly what you will do and when, but we do know the broad strokes of what is going on here on Earth. On Earth. So we can tell you that you are shifting and you are making it easier on yourselves and the entire collective by doing the work that you are doing. You do have a lot of leeway in this fourth dimension in terms of what you want to create and experience as you wait for the rest of humanity to catch up and ready themselves for the completion of the shift to the fifth. We suggest that you be very open to many different possibilities in terms of what you would like to create and what you would like to see your fellow humans create. You must realize by now that you don't have to do it all yourselves. You can sit back and relax while someone who is very passionate about creating clean energy takes that to the next level. But you can decide for yourself what you would like to live in a world with clean energy that is free and available to all, and you can harmonize with that world while you go off and do what you are passionate about doing. And in the meantime, you can expect to receive some downloads, some new ideas, some inspired thoughts for what it is you want to experience and do. We know that if you are receiving this transmission, you want to be of service in some way, and we know that there are a myriad of ways to be of service that you hadn't thought of yet. So you can receive those inspirations if you are open to the unknown. If you can let go of your fear of the unknown and embrace it, then you can co-create with these higher frequency energies, and you can co-create experiences and opportunities that you could never dream of with your very limited physical mind. So if you have a very rigid plan, a very well thought out agenda for yourself and for humanity, we suggest that you set it aside and that you open yourself up to receive that which is brand new to you and to Earth. Because you never know what you can receive until you open yourself up to all possibilities coming to you easily and effortlessly. So that is our advice for you in terms of what you will create next. You can, of course, take it or leave it. We are the Arcturian Council, and we have enjoyed connecting with you. So as I said, I'm going to post the link for this below, and I highly recommend it if there is an archive for this, that you have a look at the rest. Oh, I found the archive. Oh, fantastic. Okay. I will be posting that below then. So I'm going to have to, unfortunately, wrap this up pretty soon. Like I said, this is going to be a really quick podcast this week because I am on limited time. I wanted to give you guys an update on my tooth and the Diatomaceuos Earth that I've been doing for the last week. So I made my incredible toothpaste last week, and I have the recipe in the description box of last week's episode or podcast. It's going really well. I'm intermittently using my homemade toothpaste with a neem toothpaste that I bought at the health food store, and I'm finding it really amazing. I actually spent an overnight staying with relatives and forgot to bring anything to wash my face with. Standing at the sink, I looked at my toothpaste, my homemade toothpaste, and I thought, you know what? Why not? Put it on my face, because everything I bought to be taken internally was actually also, you know, basically cosmetic grade as well. So I ended up washing my face with my homemade toothpaste, and wow, completely blown away. So yeah, kind of a life-changing experience, and I will get more into that. So my all-over body cure homemade recipe, I'm not washing my face with it. My Diatomaceuos Earth. Well, I did 5 days of half a teaspoon, and things went really well. I guess I'm really lucky that I've been actually eating pretty well for a couple of years now, just very intentionally, and I've been intermittently fasting for about a year. So I actually had very, very low reaction to the toxicity of the detox. So when you take Diatomaceuos Earth, it surrounds any parasites in your body, and what parasites do, because they don't want to die, and so they freak out and they basically push out any toxins in their body into your bloodstream. So when you detox, often people feel really, really sick because that's what's happening, or when people have like enemas and stuff, like for health reasons or for detox reasons, you can get really sick because you're pulling away something that's been against skin, fresh skin for a long time, and so everything's new and everything's exposed, and all this stuff's coming out, and parasites are freaking out, and dumping all their toxins and stuff. So this is why you want to have activated charcoal around. And I found, actually, because the activated charcoal, it's a bit complicated. You're not supposed to have it for at least an hour and a half between meals and whatnot. And I mean, I drink coffee pretty much all day long, and I'm also out and about with the kids, so it's not always easy to remember when it comes down to timing. Do one at this time and one at the next, and make sure it's between meals and blah blah blah. So I ended up only doing the activated charcoal once, and that day I was feeling pretty gnarly, but since then I've been pretty good. I'm now on 2 days or 3 days of doing a full teaspoon of the Diatomaceuos Earth, and what you're supposed to do is basically work your way up to a tablespoon in the water. Now I'll say the difference between a half a teaspoon and a teaspoon is pretty gritty, like it's pretty crazy gritty already, and it's only going to get worse, but that's fine. I'm going to add to the website that I'm building some do's and don'ts on Diatomaceuos Earth, because I watched a video of a guy who basically soaked his spoon to make the entire thing wet and then just like ate it like a spoon. That I think is a terrible idea. I was discussing the properties of diatomaceous earth with my husband, and we likened it a lot to cement powder. So I don't think it's a really good idea. There's certain ways to take it, and there's certain ways to not take it. And I think mixing it with as much water as you can is really important. It's really important not to get dehydrated, so drinking lots and lots of water is really important. And yeah, we'll see. Anyway, it's only been a weekend. It feels like the hole in my tooth is getting smaller, but I don't know. At this point, I think it's way too early to tell. I think I'm probably be jumping the gun on any kind of results at this point. Diatomaceous earth is especially good for your skin and hair and digestive system and blah, 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 blah. I haven't really noticed any changes in my body yet, but like I said, it's only been about a week. And I might start taking pictures to log this because it could be very interesting. And I'm really looking forward to telling you how things are going in a week. I do have to say my sleeping patterns are a bit funky right now, but you're supposed to actually sleep a lot better. But I will say my energy's way up. So for someone who didn't sleep so great this week, and part of it was because I was traveling and I was in a different place and whatever. But I don't, yeah, I feel really good for not really sleeping properly. So that's kind of an interesting thing. Yeah, I don't think I really have much else to say about that. And we'll see how it affects my hair because I am allowing my hair to dread freestyle. So we'll see if I can see a difference between how it looks and how it's acting. So, anyway, you know what? I think we're going to wrap it up there for this week. I do apologize for the shortness, the brevity of this podcast. But if you prefer the brevity of the podcast, please let me know. I am very open for tips right now. And really hoping to hear from you guys, and please do send me any questions that you have, anything to do with what's going on, any ways of helping out fellow family members or friends with their own path in awakening, any concerns or questions you have about anything, especially anything to do with my videos on my channel. Please do feel free to create a dialogue with me on anything you see. I was going to mention that the Spreaker podcast site that I had originally started this on is asking me to give them money if I want to have more, access for more video or for more podcasts and stuff. So we'll see. This month is soon ending, and I'll be able to post last week's podcast and this week's on Monday on there. And then we'll see. We'll see if it is worth me shelling out or maybe waiting for a bit and then doing it down the road. So we shall see. So again, if you want to send any questions to me, please do to sarah.tonen.receptor@gmail.com, and that's spelled sarah.tonen.receptor@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you guys. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week and feel blessed and, just happy to be here. So no matter how bad things get, do know that as we are uncovering and digging out the toxic waste on our planet, we have to go through the layers. We have to expose the stench. So what you are seeing isn't necessarily the way things are going to be. We are airing out our dirty laundry, and all the stains are making a stink right now. So, yeah. Anyway, I hope you guys are happy and good. And this is not necessarily the most expected song to play, but I can't get it in my head, and I really hope it works on the OBS and doesn't sound like garbage. Have a wonderful week. God bless. Spring is here.